Thank you so much, Alan. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sharon Parrish, and I will be your platform assistant for today. We're going to have a wonderful service. Welcome back, Reverend Sandy Butler, and her title is Spiritual Epiphany. And also, we have Alan Naylor, the musician. Thank you so much. Now we have our centering prayer, and my centering prayer is inner peace from mindful moments. In prayer each day, I choose to turn my thoughts to the peace of God within me. On the surface of my mind, the appearance of lack or conflict or fear may toss my thoughts about and worry. I gently release those thoughts and move my attention deeper to a place of peace within me. I take time for prayer throughout my day as I rest in the stillness. I am serene, mind, body, and spirit. Each time I center myself in the peace of God, I experience absolute peace and tranquility.
Alan, for that marvelous journey. And let us rest with that just for a moment. That was a journey that you decided to take or not take. It was and is a gift of spirit working in and through Alan. You know that. We affirm that. And in keeping with that affirmation of affirming the Spirit of God works in and through us always, we wander today, and we wonder as we wander, in a journey of the Magi called the feast, if you will, of Epiphany. And I bring that to you this morning because, my friends, we will have epiphanies and journeys, as we know, for all enduring time. However, I'm bringing to you this morning just a different look at that concept, that idea of Epiphany, because I do believe we don't celebrate Epiphany as much as we could. And I bring you the opportunity, by learning more about Epiphany and what Epiphany is, to make the choice as to whether or not you A, agree with the presentation, or B, you might use an epiphany from now and then as to how you build your life. And so there comes with all of that, before we do anything, we listen. And I'm going to ask you to pay careful attention to this from Matthew chapter 2. And we are in the verses 7, and I'll see how far I go with it to make my point. We're with Herod at this point, and he has called the wise men to go forward and learn from them the exact time when the star of Bethlehem will appear over Jesus after he is born. And so the wise men, as they are called many times, the Magi, or the Magi, I learned recently, they went to him and they told Herod that the birth and the star were in Bethlehem. And Herod said, "Oh, you must go and diligently search for that child. And when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that star and stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. And on entering the house, they saw the child with Mary and his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. And that is the story of the Magi. And what that story has done biblically for all of us and for those before us has been what we call in Christian liturgy the second movement of the liturgical calendar, for those of you that like to know that stuff. Advent being the first movement. And we go through Advent, and then we have and Epiphany. Christmas and Advent are together, as you know, because we've spoken about that before. And then comes Epiphany, and that is called the second movement of the calendar. And the Epiphany, in this case that we just read, is the story of the Magi as they traveled to celebrate the birth of this new way of being, this new light, this light that they paid homage to. And they were of different faiths. They were not Christian. And they took their gifts of frankincense and myrrh and gold, and they gave them to the child and they knelt down. These were kings, to the child, in front of the child. Now that's how the story goes, all right? And Epiphany, or the feast, and the Feast of Epiphany, which celebrated the wise men, the Magi, who went to see this child that would bring such a new way of being, a new message, a light unto a dark world. And they went home a different way. That's the end of the story. In other words, they were not going back to Herod, because Herod wasn't looking for Jesus in order to pay homage. He was going to kill that, do away with that child and many other children who did not subscribe to the given Judea tradition. And so what happens here is the wise men decided, no, we're not going back to Herod and telling him where the child is. We are going home to our own countries, and then we are going to tell the world about this child. We are going to tell them about the light that shines forever and what that means, and how after 1,000-mile journey, they were filled with joy. All right, so many of you, maybe that's the first time you've probably heard about that part of Christmas. When I was a kid, that part of Christmas, the Magi, okay? That was the day we took the Christmas decorations down, by golly, because that meant Christmas was finally a done deal, all right? And in some families, my own included, it was kind of like, and don't bring it up again. Thank you very much. All right. It's just not what we're going to do. We're done with Christmas. We did all that. And I say, we ain't done with Christmas. And I want you to know how I feel about it. Okay. So that's where we're going today. Epiphany is one of the great, marvelous, I'll call it a tool for today, because I want to just tell you how that sits with me, of moving through how we are as spiritual seekers. And I often, I know some of you don't agree with him, but Richard Rohr said it interestingly enough, and I like the way he said it was, are you just going along for the ride, or are you serious seekers, people? And I think you're serious seekers. So here we go. I also think that it's the end of January, and don't you know, we've been given this wonderful storm, and by golly, you all could be having an epiphany right here and now. So listen up, because New Year's is not about resolutions in my book. It's about revelations. And what does epiphany mean? Revelation. To come to something with a new understanding. And how do you come to that something? It's something that it could be you've lived with all your life, or an idea that you've had that you know by George is true, and then one day, one moment, or maybe many days, but usually it's one moment in time, you have an epiphany and you see what you had looked at and known differently. You are coming home a new way, and coming home means to God. We don't always remember. And that's one of the things I'd like to also tag on here as far as Christmas is concerned. We do not remember that the Christmas story is about us, okay? It's our story. And it's our story about how wide awake are you? Did you know that it's an awakening story? Are you aware of the story and how it awakens the Christ in each of us? And some of you may say, okay, Reverend Sandy, calm down. I'm not quite sure, but that's why we're all getting together, right? Yes. And so I go back to the phrase, good. Are you a serious seeker, or you along for the ride? I'm assuming, bad word, I know you all got that one lined up to tell me about that word, that we're all serious seekers. So let's get serious. With Epiphany and how it works in our world, I'm also going to bring in a new favorite that I have, and it's called by George, don't you know? Can you see it? Epiphany. just in case there's those of you that like to know these things. And it's written by Elise Ballard. And she's kind of new on my block of writers and thinkers and whoopiettes. But here she has some things to say about Epiphany that I think that we can awaken to. We can get up and say, this is something new I might not have known. But that's not an epiphany, my friends. Here's the definition of epiphany that I really like, but I probably in a small group. And the epiphany is a blinding flash of life-changing insight. All right? Some people will tell you, no, I think epiphany, that word means an aha moment. Yes, I've heard that before. You can have an epiphany both in our secular world, and a lot of us do. You hear that word mentioned many times in conversation. It used to be a lot more. Oh, I've had an epiphany. Okay, we're going to hang the Christmas decorations over there and we'll put the tree over there and that'll work. That, my friends, is not an epiphany unless you say it is. I'm not here to tell you what's an epiphany. I'm here to present just what is an epiphany. And that's why I took great pains on my talk title to put spiritual epiphany. I don't want to get into a discussion of whether the tree should go there or the light should go there and call it epiphany. Not good. I want to come and say with a spiritual epiphany, because it's got punch and I like punch. It is a revelation in something, and here's the kicker, ordinary. Oh, so often we like to say epiphany means extraordinary. No, that's not how it comes down. Epiphany is a revelation, which is its own epiphany. It's been revealed to you and to me, something that you didn't know or you didn't believe, or you simply had it differently in your minds. And it comes from something that you do every day in a very ordinary way. And some of you are already looking for what that is. I don't know. It's your life. You're the serious seeker. You're awake. You start looking for your epiphanies. And that's part of this message today. Because we like to deal with epiphany and then say, let's put that on the shelf, okay? Put that right up there with the 5 principles. Please don't do that. I'm asking you to understand epiphanies happen in life more than once. And they can happen in different categories of life. And I'm calling forth this from the book that I'm using at the moment. And those categories can be awakenings. They can be new directions that you're taking. They can be healings. They can be miracles. They can be coming of age, and they can be callings. Those are generally the categories that are accepted of where you might find an epiphany, where you might recognize one. So what I'm asking you to do is first awaken to the fact that we all have epiphanies. You've probably had them when you were children. You didn't know to call them epiphanies. They were, back to my likely definition, revealing something out of the ordinary and then demonstrating that in your life because you had a blinding flash of life-changing thought. In other words, most of you, and I'll ask you right now to think of the time you had your first epiphany. I gave you the categories. We all live in those categories, everything from healings to callings, because we live in this world and we're connected to each other. There are epiphanies in our world, one right after the other, but I'm asking you personally, out of your awakenedness, when was your first epiphany? Where something that you ordinarily would accept as a given and as truthful was in a blind flashing, light moving thought changed, and so was your life. And it was so changed, you decided to live your life differently because you now saw and you felt in your entire oneness a new way of being. And remember to connect the dots back to the Magi. They were not going back to Herod. They were going to a new way of being. They would not return to the old ways. And they already knew the new way, which is why some of you are even sitting here. The new way, think of unity. You first understood about unity. That is the way, you say. I had an epiphany. I came to a unity church. And then, of course, we've hung around with this one, which needs to be changed. It felt like coming home. All right, it did, and it does. Move on. Continue your awakening. Continue, build on that first epiphany, and keep building with epiphanies. And so some of you may say, I actually didn't know, Reverend Sandy. I thought you had an epiphany once. Oh, no, be still my heart, you don't. And this young woman who has written this book, who I seem to have a new interest in, says the following. And this is where she dovetails nicely with, I think, spirituality. And I'll go back around in a minute. Why people have epiphanies. And she says, there is a quality present in an epiphany that she calls reverence. It's a deep respect for the experience and what was learned from that experience. And she says that there are 4 parts to an epiphany. There's listening. You have to listen if you're going to hear the sound or the silence of where you are in your life. Belief is number 2. And then action. And she suggests serendipity. All of these are just for you to conjure about and to think about, with the word reverence being the main thread for all epiphanies, generally speaking. And I'm talking, once again, to refresh your minds and memories, spiritual epiphany. I don't need you to have reference necessarily that the Christmas tree's over there and the lights are over there, if you get my drift, okay? This is spiritual epiphany. This is close to our hearts and our minds. And when we put in reverence, that is a deep respect for the epiphany. And that's why I'm asking you to think about your very first epiphany spiritually. What was it? And I would like you just to hold that with the intention of bringing it forward in meditation. I won't ask again or bring it forward to you again. I'm asking you now in this time of awakening. Think of that first epiphany and what you had in that epiphany. What did it give you? What did you receive? And why is it you can remember it right here and right now? That's part of an epiphany. It's not something that you remember, say, oh, I should have had a V8 and forget it. No, the epiphany demands, if you will, that's a Sandyism, that you put it into your life and use it. You got a lesson out of that epiphany. You got something to take home in God to your fellow man. Do we not now have a world that is looking and saying, where? Why? How? So if you go to your epiphany and know that that first epiphany gave you, oh, so valuable information about who you are and why you're here, because you know what? We're all here. We all have a purpose, and we know that. We may not articulate it, but we know it. And so an epiphany to me is a way to bring that forward. And there are ways to do that. We don't have time for all those ways today, but I wanted you to know that an epiphany is sacred. And when you understand that you have many more epiphanies in your life, you don't just bank that first one and move on. You recognize that having epiphany, working with them, building on them, will make you, once again, a very serious seeker. You want to know more about your connection, your depth, your expansion, You're to the stars, to that wonderful star, and connecting and being and allowing the activity of Holy Spirit to work in and through you, and how that works in our world. And it's not like we don't have a reason to clearly understand how to move forward. So, what my friend here says, Elise, we should honor our epiphanies. They're not just something to talk about, and they're not just something for Reverend Sandy to kind of pontificate from for all of us. The other thing she talks about, but I will, are 4 gifts of sharing epiphanies. The first one I love, it's wisdom. And you know what the wisdom is? The wisdom is ask your family members what their first epiphany was. If they don't know epiphany, explain what epiphany is to them. Ask them, and then the next one is listen. Listen to what they tell you. You can start with your family, and then you can broaden it out. Because the third one is intimacy and insight, and then healing and inspiration. And you don't have to know them all or remember them all. It's just the gift of maybe utilizing the idea, the concept, and the love within an epiphany, a new way of being and a new way of thinking in our world as divinity within and humanity. So when we're all searching around, I just, for a reason, for a purpose, you don't have to search. You can utilize Epiphany along with our many other messages in unity. But I'm bringing this one to you because I don't talk enough about it. I don't understand near enough about it. And I'm not asking you to accept it at all. All I'm asking you to do is understand it is very much a part of who we are as seekers, as unity. Epiphany has a message of connecting with each other in a very sacred, reverent way. And so as we're moving along in all of this, I just want to have you know one thing about epiphanies. When you start asking people what was their epiphany, some of you may say, well, I'm not ready to do that in the spiritual world. Okay, fine. Do it in your secular world. What was their first epiphany when they first were nominated vice president of yada yada? Or when they, pardon me, got their doctoral degree? Think of the categories of people. Think of people that you know that are ill. Ask them, what was your first epiphany? And some of you may say, well, how? I don't know how to do. I don't either. I'm suggesting. And that's really, really all that I'm asking you to do is suggest to yourself. What was your first epiphany? And then I'm asking you to write it down. You don't have to send it to me. Write it down and look at it. What did you get? What was the lesson? And are you still demonstrating that lesson in this life right here that we're talking about? And if you are, bravo. Now take all that, and here's the awakening part, the Christmas gift. Look at it and watch how you can awaken to exactly what came in that first epiphany to a possible new epiphany, and use that to build connection in our world. Use that to understand who you are. What is your purpose and why you came? And to connect and invite someone else to just speak about who they are and what is their epiphany. These are amazing guides that I think we have. We know them innately. This person has just spelled them out. And I like to think the Bible spells them out in a big way with the wise men going a new way home. That's pretty clear. All right, so the essence of epiphanies, you're going to love this. All of us unity folks will love it because she comes right down on it. Love. No, you say. Nah, no. Yes. And while I'm being seemingly funny and facetious, I'm dead serious. I'm alive serious. Love. And some of us forget that. We say love, we want to be love, we want love to work for us, but we're not quite sure. And that's where the remembering of who we are and why we're here. We are divine, my friends. It's the human part that deals with the remembering, but the divine part is standing right within us, working within us, waiting for the invitation, for the allowance, for the acceptance. Excuse me, the invitation is always there. But our allowance and our acceptance and our being awake fully, which is another fancy way, not so fancy, of saying fully present. Are you fully present to life? I don't know. I know that I'm not all the time. And some days I'm very sad about that. There are days recently when I've been very sad about the fact that I'm not fully present because I'm sad and I'm not learning from my sadness. I'm not taking that sadness and integrating it and sewing it into my personal tapestry and then saying, awake, move on, build on this. Yes, you're sad. Yes, it's part of where you are. And then you take the sadness and you move it out and you remember that the divine in us knows no sadness. There is no sadness in the divine. And we say we are of the divine. I preach it. You teach it. We have to remember. And part of why we're all here is to remind each other. Now, I can feel my face getting red and I'm starting to go off the back 40. So that means meditation is calling. What I would like to remind you is this. What we call God, the God of our being, is at work revealing, if we accept that reveal, today and all days, love, wisdom, insight, pick a 12 power, love being the essence of God. And so I ask you to continue as you move forward, offering your best self forward as you learn from your epiphanies when you go to demonstrate your best self in life, because that's part of the other part of Epiphany, demonstrating what you have learned, a lesson that you received in that epiphany in life. How are you going to do that? And she answered in one word, love. And I've said this to you before, when we have a challenge, when we have a heartache, when we're angry, what would love do? What would love do? And you know what love would do. And so now it is time for us to move into meditation. I thank you for your time. And I believe that we are playing, Jan, our thoughts are prayers. Yes. And so with that, just take those thoughts, move them with prayer. Be gentle with yourself as you come to this time. Be gentle in understanding the sacredness of Epiphany, a time to learn, a time to change, a time to go deeper in who we are and what it is that ours is to do. As we turn the page on a new year, we remember every moment is an opportunity to write part, if not all, of our story, of the story, the Christmas story, the birth of the light and the love of the God of our being dwells in each and all of us. The love is all. Slowly take that. Take that and hold that in your heart. Love is all. Love is the God of our being. All is the God of our being. And that love, that allness, that oneness is in all of us. Whether we as humans can see that divine, that all, that love is ours to choose. We have the gift, we have the spiritual nature, but do we choose it? And do we choose it? To see with the eyes of the Christ. It is difficult. It is challenging. And then there is the opportunity, the possibility for epiphany, for seeing through the eyes of the Christ, when before we thought we never could, we never would, and we never should. No, we see anew, and we travel anew in each of our lives as we connect with each other, with all each others in love. We open to wonder and awe as the wise men did. Every moment is an opportunity to approach life with curiosity and wonder, allowing us to experience the world as if for the very first time. Notice and be moved by beauty and mystery in ordinary moments. That is an epiphany. And we can affirm, I open my heart and mind to wonder, to welcoming, to awe and curiosity in every moment of my day. I open to divine love. Opening to the divine's love, every breath reminds us that we are cherished because we are unique, magnificent expressions of the divine. How might we experience life if we treated everyone we meet as the most beloved of the divine? Just simply hold that in your heart and in your love. And affirm, I open my heart to the divine's love. Knowing everyone I meet is the divine in action, I am grateful for everyone I meet and for their truths. I am open to divine givingness. There is enough for everyone. I am grateful for the bounty of the universe. I give and receive freely, knowing I am sourced and supplied by the divine. I am one with the all. I live, move, and have my being in the all. And I declare, all lives, moves, and has its being as me. This is the truth that sets us free. Amen.
When you walk through a storm, keep your chin up high, and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm is a golden sky and a sweet silver song of a
And now I will do the closing prayer. It's from the book I Can by Jake and Keith Proverse. I can do all things through Christ. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens and empowers me. I am self-sufficient in Christ's sufficiency. I am ready for anything and equal to anything through him who infuses me with inner strength and confident peace. When I am weak in human strength, then am I truly strong, able, and powerful in divine strength. So I will not falter on my convictions, and I will not let persecution cause me to draw back from the call of Christ upon my life. For I am strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. I will be successful in every endeavor because I am not alone. Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. And so it is.